I do think what I try to offer through the films, the podcast, the writing, whatever, even the acting, but that gets a little pretentious maybe, but I'm whatever else it is, it might not be perfect, but I am not lying to you.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Jack Dunphy is an actor. He sat down with me on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to talk about the work.
I have a feeling, and I don't know why I have this feeling, that there is nothing that resembles any kind of traditional approach to acting that you adhere to, like in terms of process.
I'm untrained. It's total imposter syndrome. Yes. Yeah.
But like, especially when I see somebody that for me yields the results that you yield.
Yeah.
It makes me want you to never ever dip your toe in any kind of training.
Yeah, okay.
But
I'd be too scared anyway.
Yeah.
I've heard those classes are intense. People like to have their ego shattered and be abused. And
yeah. You use yourself in your art, like whether it's literally in your movies or just the personal stories.
Yeah.
Were you interested in performing before you started making movies?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I grew up worshiping Chaplin and Woody Allen, and I just assumed that's what I would do. You know, I would be some version of myself and my stuff. And I tried that in college and it was awful. It was like, you know, college, you imitate people you like. So it was this horrible Louis imitation. And I realized playing a version of myself is not interesting to me in any way. I think it's hard. People are like, oh, that's easier to play yourself. It's not. It's harder because I think you know yourself less than you could know a character that you can sink your teeth in through the text or through just thinking about it, walking around, doing the voice. I've tried to maintain a certain physicality for characters. I don't always remember, you know, like I'll do a short and then I'm like, God damn it, I figured out that guy's walk and in this shot I'm just running around. But yeah, I like playing characters. If I write a character for myself, I like it to be something that there's me in it, but is not some sort of, you know, hey, it's Jack, it's the caricature of Jack again. Mm-hmm. Even the podcast, they wanted a stencil drawing, and so now I have the caricature of my face, and when I see it, I'm like, fuck this guy. Once you have the stencil drawing, it's like, ugh. And I don't like the branding of me. I don't like the branding of myself, but you kind of have to do it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about specifically on a podcast where you're actually yourself.
Yes.
But you don't like the actual branding of you.
Not really.
In that. It's not like a fake version of yourself.
Right.
It's you. Now, this can probably, you know, if we want to get a little psychoanalytic for a second, like this could probably lead to like some things about how you feel about yourself.
Uh-huh.
I mean, shouldn't that not be trusted?
Which part?
How you feel about yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think you're a very likable persona.
Fuck you. No, no, thank you. Thank you.
So, but is that because you've actually kept me from knowing you?
The real dark.
Yeah.
Well, I try not to be manipulative in the sense of I'm going to be the nice guy or I'm going to be this virtuous person or intentionally charming. Some girl said that at a bar once. Like some other person was like, "Oh, did you see what Jack just did? Did you see how he said that?" And the girl was like, "He's being intentionally charming." So yeah, and then I had a crush on her. That didn't work out. But yeah, no, I don't want to be so intentional about it. But also, there's a reality of you do have to present yourself a certain way in order for the viewer, the listener, to be drawn in. Mm-hmm. And I've done, you know, this feature I've been working on forever. There's been so many iterations of it. And in the narrative portions that I was co-directing with Nathan Silver, there was an idea of show the worst parts, show the darkest parts, and it's confrontational. And, you know, test audiences. I went to US in Progress where you show rough cuts and people were not into my character. You do speed dating, like investors and producers, you sit at a table and then they come and speed date. And one woman was just like, I didn't like the movie, and I don't like you. So but at the time I was like,
want to see it even more now.
Well, at the time I was like, well, people just don't like problematic characters. They don't like being challenged. But there's a reality of no, you do have to coax the viewer in and make them feel like they can trust you. And weirdly, what I was hiding was, if you can call it the charming parts, but just who I really was. Like, I can be a prick, but I can also be a nice guy that listens and stuff, and I prefer to be that person. And I was weirdly hiding that to be a more abrasive version of myself, because I thought that was like the riskier thing. And so you do have to let the viewer, the audience know, like, you can trust me, because I do think you can trust me. I'll be who I really am. Sure, I'm not going to be as petty, and I would love to be.
Yeah.
But I have the sense usually to kind of cut that off.
Yeah. You're talking about Chaplin, and you're talking about Woody Allen. I think it'd be good to just talk about, like, was there a formation of what you responded to in terms of performance? And I'm not just talking about you approaching performance, but what you want out of a performer in the work that you do, and how was that formed?
Well, let's see. I want rawness, vulnerability, the ability to work on the fly. Not necessarily, they don't have to be a master improviser, but just to be, I've had directors, like when I'm acting and someone, like there's another actor that's just not working out, and I have to kind of act around them, which isn't fun. And then sometimes I'll just throw in an ad lib just to, throw them off, and they can't handle it. And then the director will tell me, listen, so-and-so's not really good at, being in the moment. So, and I'm like, fire him. That's not. So I like working with my girlfriend, Colleen Rose Trundy, who's such a big fan of this and maybe slightly jealous that I'm on it. But she's so good. And then Jesse Pinnock is so great.
Yes.
And I love working with actors that I relate to, and I can see the pain in their face and maybe don't look traditionally like how actors look. I can't stand watching a movie and it's just a bunch of headshots.
Yeah.
And in terms of how I gravitated towards certain performances, the first actor I really started, like, I'll see movies just because he's in them. It was Jack Nicholson. In high school, I discovered 5 Easy Pieces, The Last Detail, etc. And I thought blowing up like that was the ultimate thing an actor can do. And I tried to do that in my early short films, high school or college films, and it was awful. And then I started really getting into Robert Duvall with his subtlety. He gets less subtle once he starts directing himself and getting into the good old boy, the good old boy thing, the Apostle, and he's just like he just indulges himself, which is fun too. But if you watch those performances in Tender Mercies, especially Network, even MASH, there's a subtlety. Something going on behind his eyes. And then I was like, well, that's acting. And now I've figured out a way to blow up in stuff. And I love it. So I've come back around. It's not the pinnacle of acting or anything, but it's a point of pride that I've found a way to blow up. I'm not Jack Nicholson, but just in a way that feels true, where I used to not be able to do it.
What do you think that is? What's the secret there?
To blowing up?
Yeah.
There's so much anger in me and in so many people.
But didn't you have that when you were blowing up and not liking it?
No, because I was in my head about acting. One of my bad college films, I heard that James Gandolfini playing Tony Soprano would put a little pebble in his shoe to get mad and walk around. So I tried that, but it was a big jaded rock. And so I was literally limping in every scene. And then my friend was like, obviously, he used a small pebble, not something and not a jagged rock you found on the beach. And so, it's just stupid stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting, like, how you're basically saying, like, that these performers that you admire were kind of tweaking this thing for you. Like, here's this blow up guy, really cool. And then here's this more subtle performer. Have there been anything since then that has actually tweaked things for you, or maybe even people like you're saying, like Jesse or Colleen, who you admire, and like are they changing things for you? Because if this is your school, like just like taking in stuff that other people are doing, has that continued?
Yeah, I mean, I see the preparation that actors I admire do. Like Colleen's a real trained actor, and she can cry on command, which sounds like sometimes like a pet trick or something, but it's impressive, and there's a technicality to that that I admire. And she takes a lot of notes, and she does her homework on. She really studies the script. Eleanor Hendricks does that too. I've worked with her, and it's on the one hand, it's inspiring, and it makes me know that I have to show up a little bit and not treat film sets as like social situations, which is hard to not just like have fun with the crew and laugh and and then it's like, no, you're actually here to do a job. I just flat out did not learn a monologue once and then was on the spot, and I was like, wow. And it wasn't like I forgot the monologue and tried. It was like I never sat down and learned this. I was flirting with the sound girl and just messed up. But what I learned from that also is kind of to not do that. I mean, to your point of like, I am untrained. I see myself as sort of a 3-chord, 3-chord, like a Woody Guthrie,
Nothing wrong with that.
And other actors are 12-string. And I recognize my limitations. I do think it's fun to push your limitations. They say the sign of maturity is to know your limitations, and obviously that's true, but I also think maturity can be the enemy of good, playful art. Like, you need to maintain a childishness.
Yeah.
So it's fun to be immature and push your limitations, and sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't. But when I see the process of more trained actors who I admire, and I'm just like, you can do a thing I can't do, I also know, because I just didn't have that training to sort of crash course now, seems like that might not be the best move for me. And I have these sort of, in the same way that I taught myself to edit and animate and I don't hold a pencil right. When I animate, I literally have to have a separate page so I can lick one hand, rub the pinky that is now completely covered in ink or charcoal. And so I'm not licking the charcoal off my one pinky. I use the wet hand that I've just licked.
This is real.
It's real because I don't hold a pencil right.
Whoa.
And my teachers always said, like, you're screwed. Like, you won't get into a good college because you don't hold your pencil right. But the result is, I have to wipe the ink on one hand, then have a separate paper where I wipe the wet hand on that paper. So, everything I do is kind of cobbled together and learned on the fly. But eventually, you kind of get used to your own idiosyncrasies and your own internal method.
And do you think that all of these artistic endeavors are like of the same thing? Do you know what I mean? Like all connected, and like you're an artist. Mm-hmm. Are you somebody that thinks like that, or do you think that these are separate?
I do think it's all connected, but you also have to understand the medium if you're tipping your toe into a different thing. Like for the podcast, I really love radio. I really love Joe Frank. I I sat on the toilet and listened to Howard Stern for many years, but Art Bell even, so I really respect radio, and part of why I give context in the opening is because in radio they give you context. Terry Gross explains who Keith Richards is before she interviews him, and in podcasts you kind of come in singing the tune, which I respect about your podcast.
I was going to say, you're forgetting somebody here.
Who?
I think the guy you're sitting with. Like, you're talking about Terry Gross, you're talking about all these people who influence you. You didn't say the person you're sitting with. This is unconscious.
You absolutely influence me, but
I can hear it.
But you're someone I know. So if I listen too much, I'm like competitive with you, or I feel I mean, not competitive because you're at a different level than me, but I don't want to get influenced too much.
Well, you're starting to claw your way back to my good graces. But I get it. But it feels like you already, like, I heard that you're doing a podcast, for some reason I knew it was going to be good already. It's something about, I'm not even saying that your work ethic is good, because maybe it's not. Like, you claim it's not, right?
I need to stop smoking pot at night and indulging in listening to records and eating too much, because I wake up too late, and then my day is just sort of cramming in as much as I can.
But you're always doing something.
Yes.
You're always making something.
Yes.
And you always have a high standard for that.
Yes.
Maybe that's what I smell.
Yeah, I do.
When I heard about this, I'm like, that's going to be a high standard of this. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I don't care if you kill yourself. You know what I mean? Like I'm sick of people
being... My mom says that all the time.
I'm sick of people being like, well, you have to be precious to... Like, no, I want this guy to kill himself making these things.
Yeah.
That's what we need more of. We need more people... I mean, obviously, I think I want you to live, but only to make things, not to be healthy.
Yeah, well, you do need to stay healthy and alive to make things.
Good.
You know, like
if that does it, then
I'm
fine.
not that
If
healthy,
you
but I'm, for me, like not drinking or doing drugs.
Yes, because that was actually harming the work though. Anyway,
Yes, it
would you
was.
say that?
Yeah, because, I say this on one of the podcasts, but when you're in that fog of drinking and you're underwater, you're submerged and you're self-hating, you can occasionally shit out an art object, but that's like a whack-a-mole. But if you want to sustain a career and a body of work, you need to be more present and have a consistency to it. And so, yes, being more clear-headed. And when I was getting sober, like part of the thing that did it was I said, I don't want to die before having a body of work. Yeah. If I kill myself or I die, I at least want there to be a body of work that people can go back to and just know that I tried. And hopefully some of the good I tried to put out there will be remembered. And, but yeah, making that decision was like, do you want to get clean that was it. Like, I want to make my work. I don't want to let substances get in the way of the work. But so that came before I want to live so I can be healthy and have a relationship and kids and all that. That'll be nice if it happens. I'm in a nice relationship, but it was like the work first, like stay alive so you can make the work.
Yeah. I remember when I was with you working on this very strange like theater thing for Caveh Zahedi.
Yes.
That you were the star in. I had just seen Assholes. And I really loved you in Assholes. Are you able to look at that performance and appreciate the like places you went? Or are you just like look at it and think, well, that was a fucking, clusterfuck or something that happened to be, okay, and people liked it. I don't know. Like,
I feel good about it, but when I was talking about wanting to blow up like Jack Nicholson and not being able to, that was one of the moments. It was a crowded restaurant, bunch of extras. I was supposed to get up, bang the table, and scream. And I told Peter, because I had been shamed by another director that I'd worked with, because when I tried to go big, he was just like, know your limitations, don't do that. Like when directors are disappointed in you because you failed after trying. So I was like, I had internalized that. Like, I'm not really, all I can do is some sort of mumblecore shit. Like, don't try. And so I told Peter, I cannot do this. Like, I'm telling you, I can't expand in this way. And he was like, Jack, you do not have false in you. And I was like, Peter,
that's good.
I'm like 30% false, but I tried and it didn't go great. And I saw a bunch of extras look down like, this guy's having a hard time. But eventually it was okay. It was good enough. But so that was a moment that I wasn't into, but the Times Square thing, that was when I run rampant in Times Square and mess with people and almost get Betsy and I killed. That was completely improvised. It was just supposed to be Betsy and I kiss in Times Square, and I just went crazy because I did have sort of a death wish, and that was the last thing we were shooting for the movie. So I just went absolutely mad and waged war against Times Square, and the camera followed me. And
it's a beautiful piece of cinema.
Thanks. I wish they would release that as its own little clip, but I feel good about that.
Yeah.
But that was a thing, like you're talking about, you don't want me to live necessarily. That was a thing of like, I have to, like, I'm going to die or get arrested, and I'm just doing this right now. And I think about that, someone like Chris Farley or actors who struggle with their weight, and they give James Corden, his only good cultural contribution in
Mike
All
Lee's
or Nothing,
movie.
right?
Yeah,
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And you watch these guys who, it's like you are risking your life to do this with your weight and your heart. You could have a heart attack at any second. Mm-hmm. And I've been fat. I'm not even skinny right now, but in this last movie, Anything That Moves I was in, I pushed it and drank Red Bull and dumb stuff. And I just was like, if I have a heart attack, that's what happened. I don't know if I'll feel the same when I'm 50 if I get there, but and
maybe not if you have kids.
Maybe not if you have kids. Yes, you can't kill yourself if you have kids, which is just so selfish of the children. I think that there is a sense of like, you have to push it. You have to put it on the line, and people respond to that.
Yeah. And speaking of Mike Lee, though, I mean, like, I still haven't internalized this, and I'm not sure I buy it, but like, his whole approach would be like, no, you don't have to kill yourself, right? You don't even have to film the rehearsal. You don't even have to film the event happening. You can do it like if Assholes was directed by Mike Leigh, right? You guys would go around Times Square without a camera and like discover things, and then you would film it, which sounds insane.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's something to that, which is like, no, and then you break out of it and everybody's safe, and then you figure things out, and then you do it again. It yields results that we like, right? It's not like Mike Leigh is not reaching some kind of great height with these things. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, like, maybe there is another way of doing this that isn't actually dangerous.
Yeah. I don't want to destroy my life or waste my life I don't think it'll be wasted if I really focus on the art, but I don't want to destroy my relationships. And, Caveh Zahedi, mentor of mine, friend, we've had our ups and downs for sure. You'll hear that on the podcast. I don't really want to burn as many bridges as he does just because I love the people in my life. Caveh didn't grow up loving his I don't mean like he didn't love his family, but liking his family that much.
Yeah.
I think that's okay to say. And I really love my family. I mean, there was a lot of crazy stuff that I document probably ad nauseum, but I think that conditions you to have a different worldview on life.
Yeah.
In the sense of you don't want to hurt people you love, but you do. I do. And it sucks. I just, if you make autobiographical work and you use people in your life as characters or inspiration, you're just going to piss people off. You're just going to make people upset. I've had people write me and threaten me, and I'm like, my sister wasn't into the episode because she's embarrassed about, I don't know what. She comes off so well, and, but it's just like, this was an expression of love from me to you. And it's almost like I don't blame her because people like to have a curated image of themselves. They don't want to feel like a character in someone else's story. I'm very sensitive to that. But when you create something that is meant to be an expression of love, it's like you put a gift at their doorstep and then they open the door and then they stomp it like it's a flaming bag of poo. So I'm cognizant and I recognize that it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
And you might lose some relationships, and I don't want that. It's not that I don't care. I really care, and there's a certain part of me that wants to get things right through art, and it's only through recognizing that not everyone likes that. They're like, deal with me on an interpersonal level, deal with me in person, apologize in person, which I do, and it's still never enough, but the art gesture doesn't matter. And it almost gets annoying. Like, okay, yeah, it's a great piece of art, but who cares?
Yeah.
Which is unfathomable to me.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are like that. But to try to rein it in, Betsy Brown, I put out an article and she was very supportive about it. And she said, and in it I basically talk about how I was cheating on my girlfriend at the time. And I put it out after we broke up, but I kind of laid it all out. And Betsy was like, and it was the worst advice I could have gotten in a way. Good for the art, but bad for my life. She was like, it's good because you really lose something by putting this out, or you really risk losing something. And I do think that there has to be an element of loss and hardship in something you put out. I mean, if you're just making comedy, I love comedy, but if it's broad comedy, then it probably doesn't make sense to, ruin your relationships for a gag, but I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
I like that it's funny sometimes, but it's, I do, and my fiction films aren't as good as my doc and my animation hybrids. I understand that. I'm fine with it. I strive to get better. But I think if they do get better, I have to take what I do with the animation doc stuff and put it there. Because unfortunately, there has to be the moment of like, this is really hard. But that means you're getting at something, generally.
Right. Do you think that there is any way to do this with the same potency and not make people upset?
I don't know.
I mean, if there was, of course, then you would want to do that, right? But is it even worth trying? Do you know what I mean?
No.
Because it seems like it would be diluted.
Yeah, but I think there's a way to do it in a compassionate way, and because I do consider myself a compassionate person, I think it's more true to me to be compassionate towards the people that I'm talking about and not treat them as just content or material that can be discarded.
Yeah.
It's inevitable that people will get upset, but I like the idea of maybe they'll come around or see what I meant. At least they'll understand my intentions. And the feature I'm making, it's become much more about my family and not so much just it's me and there are people on the periphery. And but you can't choose to play it safe. And I do try to, my underlining principle is like, you can't operate out of fear. And I think I have a better batting average on that in art than I do in my life. I operate out of fear a lot in my life.
Well, who doesn't?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, true.
There is, so I have to tell you that working with you on that insane week on this very strange stage production, I both found new respect for you as a performer. And I also, though, like, I feel like you may not even remember this, but I was so insecure, but I feel like you got mad at me.
What?
A couple of times.
Mad at you?
Yes.
I never got mad at you. Was it when we were on stage?
Yes.
Okay, Caveh was Caveh threw the script away to make it interesting and was belittling the actors on stage, whether he meant to or not. Yeah. So it became like he was directing it and saying louder, or you should be, do this or that. And so he kept saying louder, louder, louder to you, and making you do it over and over. So eventually I started yelling my lines in response as a sort of goof on the situation.
Okay.
And like repeating your lines in a way to the audience just as an out. So was that maybe just because I was screaming? But no, I wasn't mad at all. That was just a way to try to like play that off for the audience and let them in, and also just literally knowing what you were saying, just because you were having sort of a volume issue, but you were fine.
Big time volume issue. Yeah. But this is also leads to like one of the great strengths that you have, and we're witnessing it here as I'm adjusting volume, is you have a booming, very powerful voice. Do you know this? I mean, you must know this.
Thanks.
Like it's when you do your podcast, you must be aware of this. It's like a full voice. It's coming from way down deep.
Yeah.
Right? Is this just
I like
natural?
playing with my voice. Yeah, kind of. I think I like being sing-songy in the intros of my podcast, but the first couple ones, I think it was more like, hey, and like a little bit more cartoony. And I think now I've settled into like a little bit more. It's striking a balance between being rhythmic and loud, and also a little bit more real. You know, not quite as sarcastic, but I like playing with my voice. I really respect radio people that use their voice like an instrument. I'm not trying to be self-aggrandizing or anything, but I think that it's fun. Yeah. It's fun to use your voice like that.
Yeah. I mean, so you're aware of like that you have this, it's like a tool. I mean, well, because I do so much voiceover. I mean, my animation and my doc, some of those are just voiceovers. And you have to figure out timing and a way to convey. And I like helping other people with voiceover. Sometimes people ask me if they're doing a personal doc. It's just like, it has to feel like one continuous take. You can't hear the cuts. And you just sometimes you need to like emphasize an emotion a little bit. Yeah. Or sometimes you can't emphasize it too much, or it's bullcrap. So it's a fun little, people learn to work with wood or something and you get a little bit better. I like getting better at stuff, which is acting's kind of like that. Like acting's not my main thing, but I do like it. I want to do it more. Yeah. But that's sort of like getting better at a hobby almost. Yeah. Wait. So how about these films that I guess are in post production now that you already filmed?
I think one's locked. Yeah.
So what are these characters?
Anything That Moves, directed by Alex Phillips. That's like an erotic thriller, gross out thing, but with he's talented though. There's an art in it, and I play a gay rapist cop.
Excellent.
With a thick Chicago accent, and that was fun. I love id characters, where it's total id, and you get to be despicable and horrible, and summon all your worst instincts. Culturally, we're conditioned to be a little bit racist. So if I have to be racist, I can get that out. Yeah. And if I have to be sexist, I can get that out. I mean, these are horrible human emotions that people want to suppress, or even in acting, you want to sort of say like, well, okay, I'm playing a character, but it's not really me. Yeah. And to fully embody the worst parts of yourself, but also have I don't know if you need like a compassion for your character or you need to be totally. I got a note recently on a film like you have to be kinder to your character, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. First off, I think it is kind in a larger way, but think about performances like Kenny Powers and Eastbound and Down.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you're into that, but like that kind of thing, like you don't think about like being kind to your characters. I think that's a little bit simplistic, but I think understanding where your character's coming from a little bit. And I made up a sort of backstory. And at first it was too much like on the page. It was like, he has a wife that doesn't love him. And then you get there and that all goes out the window and it becomes this intuitive thing. And I had to commit a sort of sexual assault, or I don't know what it was. It's also heightened. You don't know what exactly everything is, but I had to think like this guy's mom abandoned him and now he's taking it out on this guy and he's talking about his mom, because I could improvise so much. I don't know what they'll use, but understanding the kernels of like why this person is the way they are, I think helps. Yeah. And it's not like this mushy, like I love all my care, but it's just knowing how to exist in that skin.
Right. And the motivation. And
the motivation. Yeah. Right. On Caveh's thing, I was asking for direction and I actually accidentally said, what's my motivation? And then I was like, walk away. Walk away. He's having a soul search moment with Eleanor. So and then the other one directed by my good friend Jordan Tetwesky. Alex is my friend too, but Jordan Tetwesky and Josh Pikovsky. They, it's called Paradise and Lunch, and that's a much more grounded, rooted thing. And I play a obnoxious, sort of very unself-aware grocery store worker who thinks he's got a lot more going on than he does. And I love playing characters that are not self-aware. That balance of like being self-aware as an actor, but the job is to be unself-aware. I really love that, and playing it super straight. Sometimes it was hard not to explode laughing, playing off the other characters, because I was like, this guy, what he's saying is so silly. But if you try to say it's silly, it doesn't work. So yes, I love that kind of stuff. Again, it goes back to not playing a caricature of myself. That is just much more fun to me. And for whatever reason, I gravitate towards losery characters. In a short I did recently, I played like sort of an incel type guy, and
wonderful short that I just watched last night.
You watched it? It's a rough guy. It's going to look better with the film grade.
I love this short though, man.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I think that you also pushed yourself acting wise here, it feels like.
Yeah.
Especially in the end.
Were you consciously trying to push yourself a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I see it's going back to actors that I love and like where I work with, and seeing how they push themselves. And, it was also a character I feel like I knew, like, and unfortunately it's more relevant with the election, but I was very hyper aware, because it's an area of interest to me, is the right-wing comedy space and the right-wing podcast space with the Daily Wire and all this stuff. And I see friends of mine who I grew up with that are indoctrinated in this crap. Yeah. And part of it is ideology they're stuffing down your throat, and also it's the grift of selling you nicotine products. Yeah. Shelling out for big tobacco, and you're supposed to be what? The truth teller? Yeah. And it just gets into people's brains, and I see suddenly people are buying Zyn, and it's like, this is something that you've been sold. Yeah. And I guess if you subscribe to a more right-wing ideology, that's okay, because capitalism is king, and the people you respect are supposed to be capitalists. They're supposed to be selling you stuff. But it's like, do you really want to be, to use your terms, beta, do you really want to be the beta of this situation? You're the one getting the short end of the stick. You're the one shelling out money for these supplements and this crap. Yeah. And recognizing where some of my childhood friends are, of course, men. And also this thing of like, what is it about men in their mid-20s to mid-30s who have a deficit of things going on in their life that are just obsessed with trans issues? Yeah. It's like, do you even know a trans person? Right. So, yes, that psychology is interesting to me, and also but I have sympathy for it. And I think if people are ever going to change, if the Democratic Party, the people in power right now, are not going to learn, but hopefully there are new people that are coming up that will understand the plight of working people. And look, straight, white, youngish men, they're relevant again. however you feel. And so if you can say, oh, they're the incels, oh, we don't care about them, or you can say why.
Yeah.
How did we get, you might not want to have dinner with some of these people, but how did we get here? Why do they feel so alienated?
Yeah.
And the only way to make change, I think, is to understand your enemy. I'm okay with saying that Trump, Elon Musk, they are, and Nazis, white nationalists, they are the enemy.
Yeah.
But if you want to understand the people who are voting a different way than you are, or harbor beliefs that you find really and are very problematic and bigoted and backwards, come at it like an actor. Like, how did they get to the place they're at now?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's the only way, I think, to make change, and also to just understand your fellow man.
And also, like, if you want to take it the actor approach a step further, like, and they've said it on the show many times, like, you can't judge the character you're playing.
Yes.
And that it'd be interesting to not judge these people for a second, right? And just try to understand. I mean, sometimes an actor is playing a despicable person. They still can't judge the person, though, right? You can understand the despicable nature of them, but there has to be a lack of judgment in order to play it. And maybe there has to be that in this approach, what you're saying.
Yeah, there has to be, and I try to convey that through the podcast, and it's about having human discussions. I, reached out to an animator who I really liked throughout high school, and I just watched her be radicalized into an alt-right. Now she's a white nationalist. I reached out to her at the time when I saw her descending into this, like, hey, I'd like to just talk to you. Of course, I never got a response. I mean, she's dating, like, not David Duke, but someone like him, the younger version. Yeah, so I didn't get a response, but I'm interested in talking to people that don't feel the same way that I do. Yes, I think empathy, Roger Ebert called cinema a machine for empathy. And that sounds, but I think when people hear that, they're like, yes, empathy for the underprivileged and the marginalized. And yeah, all that's great, but it also means empathy for people who are screwing up.
Yes.
By from your point of view.
Yes. Who is the person who stars in that movie, in that short with you?
Jessie Value. Yes, she has an they, whatever. She's the only person I know who if you ask about their pronouns, they get belligerent. I don't know. He, she, don't say he, not he. I'm not a boy, but whatever. Yes, she, they, she. I'm going to say she. Because I think she goes by that. She is a non-actor. She was best friends, actually romantically intertwined, despite the fact that she's gay as hell, with my best friend John Spulu, who died, and a lot of my work is about. Yeah. And so we have that bond. She'll tell you she's an addict, and she's not doing the really hard stuff right now, I don't think, but she struggles with alcohol and all that. And
incredible performance. I think
great,
she's incredible.
She's great, isn't she?
Yes, it works well with you.
Yeah, she wrote, some of that's the chemistry we do have, and almost the little sister relationship of constantly being belligerent. And she's like, she's never acted a day in her life. In the first hour on set, he's like, my character wouldn't do this. My character, no, I'm not doing it. Like, just I'm not doing it because my character wouldn't do this. And I'm like, all right, it's a little bit like, come on, it's fake, it's a script. But then there's also like, if that's what she's saying, if it has to be real. Yeah, she intuitively knew that. And she really wants me to make her a star. She's like, I'm almost like, I should just release this because it's so topical. Like, screw the festival. She's like, I just want to walk down one red carpet, bro. I just want to walk down one red carpet. I want to get my picture taken, bro.
I want her in a series. I'll watch it.
Yeah, no, she's really good. She better not die.
Oh, yeah.
But if she does die, I mean, and it's a little scary how frank those conversations are, because sometimes she'll just be like, I just feel like I'm destined to die.
Oh, no.
And I'll be like, instead of saying, no, I'll just be like, well, that's why it's good we're doing the movie. We'll have some documentation. Then she's just like, yeah, for sure. I definitely relate to that I'm doomed thing.
Well, I thought you're away from possibly dying.
Yeah, for the moment, yeah. But if things fall apart for me, and if I, especially approaching more, I don't have any financial success right now, but like, people like are watching this, the numbers are more, and like being in New York, even for a night and going to a party, it's like, wait a minute, people are listening to this podcast. Like, I didn't know that, because you go off whether or not you get a heart emoji or something when you post it on Instagram.
Yeah.
And approaching that in Sundance this year, and like I was lucky enough to win an award, there's like an attention on you.
Yeah.
Ego management, I think, is difficult for me. It's either I am nothing, I'm crap, or it's like, am I really the shit? And that, I think, they've already floated, like maybe I'm bipolar 2. But so it's like those things, like the pendulum switching back and forth, that really plays with your ego. And I've always felt like if I were to have the success that you always want, you do this because you want it to propel your career, to further your career. And also you have a fame bug. People are lying who get into this and say they don't.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like that is sort of the death nail for me, because I have total sex addiction, I think. So to have it open up like that.
Right. I know what you mean.
And also if I wasn't in a relationship, because I've been sober the entire time I've been in this relationship. So I know that if I were to collapse, it would affect the relationship.
Yeah.
But if that went away, if I didn't have all that, and suddenly it's like, yeah, you can go to parties with sexy people and they're all doing drugs and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like,
But maybe we need to go back to our friend Caveh Zahedi's film "I Am a Sex Addict" and the end of that film, which is like, how did he get out of his sex addiction? He listened to the sirens.
I don't. I can't quote them. I know it ends with him getting married.
Yes,
and that worked out great.
Now he's divorced. But anyway, so don't watch that movie. But I know exactly what you're saying. But I guess what I'm saying is there must be a way to listen to the voices that are more powerful than the addiction voices.
I hope so, but there's also the part of me that's just like, I can't. I mean, they take it one day at a time.
Yep.
Which is also what we need to do as a country now.
Yep.
While also being cognizant of historical patterns.
Yeah.
But I have to take it one day at a time. But because if I look down, it's like monogamy. Like if I look, I'm only going to be with you for the rest of my life, or I'm never going to do drugs again. I'm never going to drink again. That is too daunting. Yeah. So there's a fantasy, and I'm actually not having as many relapse fantasies as I used to. But yeah, you fantasize. If I'm driving in a car, a taxi, or if I'm on a train, I look at these towns, like little towns, and they look kind of grimy sometimes. And it's like, what would it be like to just be stranded in this town of my own volition and just drink and walk around, live in a motel? I mean, these are degenerate fantasies, but there's something about the idea of becoming anonymous and just living the degenerate life I always kind of thought might happen and I dabbled in and stuff. And that's a fantasy, and I know it would get miserable within the first day. Oh, I can eat whatever I want. Oh, you just ate Burger King. Do you feel good?
Yeah.
I know it wouldn't quite work out, but that's always there. And throwing it all away is always there.
But this is why we need you to stay alive.
I thought you didn't care if I lived.
No, I do. But I only care if you live and tell the truth.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, so, and even this, what you just said, like somebody's relating to that, right? I mean, even I'm relating to it a little bit. So it's like, that's valuable, man. I mean, like, and there's not a lot of people that are willing to say it and to make art about it, because it's like what that opens up in terms of, hey, this is actually true about me. And then, like, people are both like, I relate to it, but I'm going to back away from that because I don't want anyone to know I relate to it.
Yeah.
That at the same time.
I mean, I hope that more people start getting really honest and in their art, and we are entering a period where, and it might be an era where people are going to have to get badass and stop being so chicken shit and really make badass resistant art. And that's not going to mean virtue signaling. Let's all talk about how bad it is, and from a political, social standpoint, and it's going to get bad on both those fronts. But I think you need to come from a personal perspective a lot of the time, and that doesn't mean there can't be activist movies. I think all art is activism. I don't think all activism is art. But I do think coming from a personal place and going from the interior to the exterior, I think to understand people deeply, you need to understand yourself fairly deeply. And I know someone like Werner Herzog would say that's psychotherapy. No, don't do that or whatever. I almost did him as a Mexican guy for some reason. I think that's bull. I do think you can get too navel-gazy, and someone described what I do as exhibitionism the other night, and I'm like, oh God, I don't think I do that, because I am honest, but it's curated. I don't want to just vomit up stuff.
Right.
I don't want it to be like, this is my diary.
Right.
But I'm going round and round. But I do think what I try to offer through the films, the podcast, the writing, whatever, even the acting, but that gets a little pretentious maybe. But I whatever else it is, it might not be perfect, but I am not lying to you. Like, I really am not lying to you. I might be withholding certain truths, not truths, but like the sex worker stuff. I could go deeper into that in terms of like even racially, culturally, but it's almost like baby steps. Like, I'll introduce a topic. I'm not quite ready to go all hog wild for public consumption, but it is the truth. It might not be like every detail, every last slimy detail of things, but eventually I even strive to kind of get there.
Yeah.
But we're being lied to constantly.
Yes.
More than ever before in history, you go on your phone and not just the ads, but the people are lying to you on your stories. Look at this fancy hotel. Look at this festival. Look at this grant I got. And I'm guilty of it. Hey, look, I won an award. Look at me, Ma. You know, I'm guilty of that too, but it's an illusion. And you see people and you think they're doing great. Oh, they're movies at Walmart, you know, and then you meet them and they're flailing. Mm-hmm. And I think that people talk about authenticity now, and I don't know, I don't think that should be a brand. I think it should be a necessity. And it's the only way we can psychologically fight what's going to happen to us. You know, the ads, TV, movies, most podcasts.
Yeah. It's
bull, and it makes you sick. It makes you sick, and it gaslights you, and it makes you complacent. So I think telling the truth from a personal perspective is the only way we're going to be able to band together and fight this.
This is why we need you. This is why we need you to stay alive. Jack Dunphy, thank you.
Thank you.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.